The people of New Jersey played a central role in the American Revolution. The state was often referred to as the crossroads of the American Revolution. The War for Independence was fought not just on the battlefields of Trenton, Princeton, and Monmouth, but in neighborhoods and homes, tearing countless friends and families apart. 90 years before the American Civil War, citizens of New Jersey were forced to endure a civil war of its own. It truly was neighbor against neighbor, brother against brother, and in the case of Benjamin Franklin's family, father against son. Caught between the British stronghold in New York City and the new nation's capital in Philadelphia, New Jersey experienced the ravages of war like no other area. With occupations of towns alternating between the British and Continental armies, New Jerseyans were forced to pick sides, splitting the population between Loyalists and rebels.
There were times when most of New Jersey was under control of, say, British troops. Then you'd have the colonials come through, and it would be, occupied by them. This very house was occupied not only by the British troops, but also by American troops.
Benjamin Franklin was a figure famous for standing up for independence and liberty, but this civil war would not spare his family. His son William was royal governor of New Jersey and a Loyalist, dedicating to keeping America under British rule. Ben Franklin and his son William had been extremely close from the day he was born. William was Benjamin's illegitimate son, but he loved him and chose to raise him as a single dad, which was very rare in those days. When Ben got married to his wife Deborah, it was under the strict condition that she would raise William as her own son. Ben was very close with William, and they grew to be close partners and friends. In fact, William was the one who helped Ben build the kite and conduct the famous lightning experiment. In 1756, Benjamin was appointed as military commander to defend Pennsylvania during the French and Indian War. William happily joined him. Benjamin was a skilled engineer and a natural leader, but had no military experience. William, however, was an accomplished soldier and trained in military strategies. Together, they made a great team. I undertook this military business, though I did not conceive myself well qualified for it. My son, who had been an officer in the army, was my aide-de-camp and of great use to me. Together, they created Pennsylvania's first militia, raised troops, and built 3 magnificent forts. They were truly an amazing father-son duo. It might be surprising to some, but Benjamin Franklin was not always a revolutionary. For most of his life, Benjamin was a British royalist and worked to bring Britain and America closer together. He enjoyed living in London for a large part of his adult life. He taught his son to love England and support the crown. William accompanied Benjamin when he was sent to London to convince the British government to force the Penns, who controlled Pennsylvania, to pay their share of taxes. Benjamin Franklin was actually trying to convince the king to raise taxes. One of Benjamin Franklin's biggest goals in life was to make Pennsylvania a royal colony, which would put Pennsylvania under the protection and direct control of the crown. William followed the crown like his father. He was in such good standing with the king from his time in London that he was appointed royal governor of New Jersey in 1763.
William was a much beloved governor, actually. One of the things that he did that he's most noted for is he created the charter for Queen's College, which later becomes Rutgers University.
Benjamin was very interested in his son's successes in New Jersey and continued to provide him with advice and aid. They both worked tirelessly to find a compromise between the Americans and the British Empire. They wanted to remain with the empire, but argued vigorously for the rights of their countrymen. In 1765, the British government imposed the first internal tax that was levied directly on Americans. The Stamp Act was meant to raise money for the defense of the American colonies, but it triggered fierce resistance and acts of violence. Benjamin successfully appealed to the British House of Commons for the elimination of the Stamp Act. Back home in Philadelphia, colonists were suspicious of Benjamin, thinking he was too close and sympathetic to the British government. William worked hard to defend his father's reputation and to make sure that everyone knew of his roles in securing the repeal. So, how did such a friendly father and son duo, who were once inseparable, wind up with such differing positions during the War for Independence? In the years leading up to the Revolution, William was serving as New Jersey's royal governor. He lived in the royal residence of the Proprietary House in Perth Amboy. He was a highly respected governor, trusting with leading his citizens and implementing the laws of the crown. Meanwhile, Ben was in London, advocating to the British government on behalf of and serving the interests of those same citizens. William witnessed the horrors and the increasing violence of the Revolution firsthand, and was even threatened himself. Benjamin, however, learned about the increasing violence 3,500 miles away through the communication methods of the day. For a time, they were able to find common ground in their letters, but over time, this became much more difficult. A major turning point came on January 29, 1774, when Ben was publicly accused of treason against the crown for instigating the Boston Tea Party. He was removed from his prestigious position as deputy postmaster. This infuriated Ben. He wrote to William, fully expecting that he would resign his post as royal governor in protest of the crown's actions. William did not agree, but instead appealed to his father to return home to help convince the colonies to stop rebelling.
Your usefulness in England is over. Why not retire to the comfort of home and family, and enjoy your last years on this earth in peace?
As being appointed loyal governor by the King of England, he took that as a sacred trust. He felt that as the British felt, the king was, he receives his ordination, if you will, from God. And the king conferred this title onto William. William said, that's a direct line, and I take that very seriously.
Benjamin was shocked by William's response, feeling utterly betrayed by the son who he'd nurtured for so long. On May 5th, 1775, Benjamin Franklin, at the age of 69 years old, finally returned to Philadelphia after 10 years. Ben was now leaning towards supporting the cause for independence and wanted to convince his son of the same. The bloody Battle of Bunker Hill and the burning of Charleston that same month sealed the deal for Benjamin. He was now fully convinced that there was no path other than complete independence from England. With the Revolution movement in full swing, Benjamin went to meet William at the Proprietary House to make one last attempt to convince William to join the revolution.
William and he argue in this room, very loudly argue in this room, and Ben is so upset that William will not change his mind that he walks out the door, and it said he proclaims, "I have no son," and their relationship was pretty much broken at that point.
William remained as governor of New Jersey long after all the other royal governors had stepped aside or joined the revolution. He refused to leave and held on to his position as the war escalated. William had become an increasing problem for the Continental Congress and his father.
When they were congregating in Philadelphia to get ready to sign the Declaration of Independence, New Jersey isn't present. Why isn't that present? They're dealing with William.
In January of 1776, a group of militiamen arrested William Franklin for treason in his home at the Proprietary House. He was to spend the next 2 years in custody, some of it under the harshest of conditions.
They put him in the public jail. The public jail is probably the worst place you can end up in colonial times.
Despite all of this, William remained steadfast, as he was released through a prisoner exchange in 1778. From New York, he proceeded to mobilize and lead a counter-revolutionary group of American Loyalists to supplement the British Army. William Franklin's failure to compromise and moderate his positions had dire consequences for the people in New Jersey. The War for Independence ended on October 19, 1781, with Cornwallis' surrender at Yorktown, but the Civil War continued throughout New Jersey, a civil war that was promoted by William Franklin. Finally, in 1782, with the Americans at the cusp of victory, William fled to England. He never came back. The father and son, who were once inseparable, were never to reconcile.
Benjamin Franklin sees him one last time. Do you think he threw his arms around him and hugged his... No. He said, "You owe me for schooling." He owed him 20 pounds. And that's the last time he ever saw his dad.
In his last will and testament, Ben left William nothing except for a small collection of books already in his possession. Essentially, Ben left his son with nothing. To my son, William Franklin, late governor of the Jerseys, the party acted against me in the late war, which is of public notoriety, will account for my leaving him no more of an estate he endeavored to deprive me of.
Like many families in New Jersey, the Franklin family was torn apart by the War for Independence. Devotion to family and sense of duty were at the cornerstone of Benjamin and William's characters. They made their own very different choices, but in their own way, they both chose loyalty to their cause over family. They were both close partners who spent many years working for compromise on behalf of their countrymen, but in the end, pressure from their inner conflicts proved to be too great for even their tight family bond to hold. On that, they were never able to compromise.